This is the TNA Wrestling September 5, 2024 full show results video. The system comes to the ring and Alicia Edwards asks us multiple times if we want to know something, and Eddie Edwards says everyone wants to see a system failure, but the system does not fail. Eddie says all the system needed was a reboot and now they are ready to take back their gold. Brian Myers says as the former tag team champions they are contractually obligated for a rematch. Myers says they are going to use that clause at Victory Road against ABC, and JDC tell everyone to shut up. Moose also tells everyone to shut the hell up because the face of the franchise has something important to say. He says in 2 weeks Nick Nemeth has to face the man he's never beaten, and you're looking at the future 4-time TNA World Champion. JDC is informed by Moose if they win their tag match tonight he's officially a member of the system, but if they lose, he's out. Alicia says if the doctors won't clear her to compete she'll find a substitute to defend the Knockouts tag team titles. Spitfire comes out and gets into a war of words with Alicia, and Jody Threat says they talked to Santino and they have a title shot at Victory Road, but if they lose, Spitfire breaks up as a team. Eric Young is backstage and Young says Emergence was the first time he and Steve Maclin touched. Young says they came to the line and they showed up like men and Maclin got one over him. He says he has Maclin's back going forward and hypes up his match against Jake something later on this evening. Then we saw a match between Kushida vs Laredo Kid, and the match ended in a no contest because Josh Alexander hit the ring and attacked both Kushida and Laredo Kid. Kushida gets on the microphone and demands a match with Josh Alexander right now. Alexander tries to leave, but Kushida attacks him on the stage and takes him back to the ring. Then we saw a match between Kushida vs Josh Alexander, and the result of this match was Josh Alexander defeated Kushida by pinfall after hitting a C4 spike finisher. Joe Hendry checks on Kushida backstage afterward and gets in the face of Josh Alexander, who has no remorse for his actions. Jordynne Grace comes to the ring for her open challenge. It's seemingly answered by NXT's Ariana Grace, and Ariana reveals she's the new liaison between TNA and NXT and introduces Jordynne's opponent, it's NXT's Carmen Petrovic. Then we saw a match between Carmen Petrovic vs Jordynne Grace for the TNA Knockout World Championship, and the result of this match was Jordynne Grace defeated Carmen Petrovic by pinfall with the Juggernaut Driver to retain the TNA Knockouts Championship. After the match, the lights go out, and when they come back on, Grace is laid out with a pillow lying by her. Teasing the fact that Wendy Chu will be the one to answer her open challenge this Tuesday on WWE NXT, and Rosemary was laughing on it. ABC reflects on Slammiversary, the night the system failed and they reclaimed the TNA World Tag Team titles. First Class interrupts, saying ABC should focus on them, not the system, and demands for one more shot for the championship, and ABC accepts First Class challenge to a match next week on TNA Impact. Newly crowned TNA X Division champion Zachary Wentz comes out to the ring to speak, and Wentz says the fans don't know how much this means to him. The fans chant that he deserves it and they thank him, and Wentz says 2 years ago he was at one of the lowest points in his life, but the fans helped him pick himself up and he came back to TNA and he's experiencing the highest of highs as the X Division champion. Speedball Mike Bailey comes to the ring and congratulates him on his title win at Emergence. Bailey says that championship means he's the best of the best and he's using his rematch clause and he'll see Wentz at Victory Road. The Good Hands come out and bury Speedball, Wentz, and Kentucky, and they hit the ring and attacked both men. Then we saw a tag team match between Zachary Wentz and Speedball Mike Bailey versus the Good Hands, and the result of this match was Zachary Wentz and Speedball Mike Bailey defeated the Good Hands by pinfall when Zachary Wentz hits the UFO cutter. Steph De Lander comes to the ring and De Lander says Matt Cardona ruined her wedding and her honeymoon and calls him out to the ring. Matt Cardona comes to the ring and De Lander asks him what's going on after everything they've been through together. Matt Cardona says he hears Steph loud and clear and he owes her an apology, and Cardona says from the bottom of his heart he's sorry that he didn't crash the wedding sooner and that he let her marry that freak PCO. Steph De Lander says Cardona can't speak to her that way and that he doesn't own her, and Cardona questions how De Lander could forget signing the contract where he plucked her out of obscurity, and he runs down everything De Lander has done for her and says he owns her. De Lander says Cardona did help her a lot and she thanks him for that, but she worked hard too, and says she got herself into TNA without him and she knows she's a superstar with or without him. Steph says the contract means nothing to her and she crumbles it up, and Cardona says everyone has a copy of that contract and her ruining that one does nothing. De De Lander starts to cry and PCO comes to the ring to make the save and Cardona hides behind De Lander and then runs away. The Hardys are backstage. Jeff Hardy says they need a win next week. Matt agrees and says when they face the system next week they are looking to make a statement by deleting them. Matt believes with that win they will be in the mix to win the TNA tag titles for a third time, and that will solidify them as the greatest tag team of all time. The next match happened between Eric Young versus Jake Something, and the result of this match was Eric Young defeated Jake Something by pinfall with a piledriver. Jake Something attacks Eric Young from behind after the match and hits him with Into the Void, and Steve Maclin hits the ring before Jake can do any more damage. Joe Hendry is backstage and reflects on his loss at NXT No Mercy. Hendry says you can't deny his momentum and he's not giving up, and Hendry says the place to be is TNA Wrestling and he had a world championship to chase. It's announced that Heather Reckless has signed with TNA Wrestling and will make her in-ring debut next week against Giselle Shaw. Heather Reckless is backstage and Gia Miller attempts to interview her but is interrupted by Ash by Elegance and Giselle Shaw. The two have words and Shaw slaps Ash and storms off, and Ash freaks out and storms off as well, and Reckless stands there trying to figure out what she's gotten herself into. In the main event of the show, we saw a match between Moose and JDC versus Joe Hendry and Mike Santana, and the result of this match was Moose and JDC won the match by pinfall when Josh Alexander interferes and takes out Joe Hendry, and Moose hits Mike Santana with a spear to score the pinfall victory for his team. Moose and JDC celebrate as TNA Impact goes off the air.